Back, we're going to be talking a little bit now about the German opera and the composer Wagner. It's spelled Wagner, but it's pronounced with a V. That's the way German language is. The German Romantic Opera, there's a couple of very important things that we get from this. One is the leitmotifs, and that word is spelled Leitmotifs, leitmotifs. This is the recurring theme that we hear throughout the opera. And this is important to us now because it's used so much in movies and TVs now. We're going to talk about that in relationship to Star Wars with John Williams. We'll talk about it in relationship to some of the other American musicians. And so the idea of the leitmotif dates back to, the recurring theme dates back to the use of Wagner in his Cycle of the Rings. And so we're going to talk about that. Now, he is the greatest figure in German opera. There's really no other that stands with him. And it's especially from the Romantic period. He established the idea that you can have words telling you one thing and music adding something else that's a little more subtle, so you can have multiple meanings coming from the multimedia at once. He is credited with the concept of the leitmotif, and we're going to talk about what that means a little bit more. It's translated, the word translates leading motive. It's an idea, a theme that recurs throughout the work, undergoing different scenes and development of the characters. And that these leitmotifs carry specific meanings that are suggested by just a few notes. Maybe it's a person or a place or an idea, an object that the composer wants you to think of. And so when he plays this particular theme, it brings that to mind. It's kind of like the way a certain smell reminds you of a place, or a certain song might make you think of something. We have that with our senses anyway. And so Wagner uses that especially well in his songs, in his opera cycle, The Ring. Now, he does away with the concept of separate arias, duets, ensembles, choruses, and ballets that usually went in all the operas of the time. He develops instead an endless melody, something that starts at the beginning and goes all the way through the work without ever really stopping. It's a little bit different, this conception, this total work that we'll hear, and it's a little bit different from anything that we've had before. So we're going to get into that in just a moment. Let me tell you a little bit about the composer Wagner before we start. He was born in Leipzig, Germany in 1813. He studied briefly at the University of Leipzig, and then he began writing operas in his early 20s. He wrote the librettos himself. That means he wrote the text, the storyline. He didn't get a story from a poet or Shakespeare or some other author. He wrote them himself. And so this was a little bit different. Most of the composers took the librettos from someone else, but he wrote them himself. And he actually unified the music and the drama more than anyone had ever done before. He wrote several early operas that he gained success with, but his Ring of the Nibelung is really the one that he's probably most remembered for. And this is where we get the idea of the fat lady in the Viking hat and the spear who's singing opera. That's where that idea comes from. It's from Wagnerian operas. Now, he wrote a cycle of 4 dramas called The Ring of the Nibelung, and these are the ones that we are most interested in hearing about and talking about. I think probably all of you are familiar with The Lord of the Rings. And this storyline of The Lord of the Rings kind of is very similar to our Ring of the Nebula. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this story. Story centers on the treasure of gold that lies hidden in the depths of the Rhine River, guarded by 3 Rhine maidens. This hideous dwarf creature, whose name is Albrecht the Nebulung, tries to seduce the maidens. They repulse him, so he steals the treasure and makes it into a ring that will bring unlimited power to its owner. Wotan, the father of the gods, this is where we get the word Wednesday, or Wotan's Day, tricks this dwarf, this Nebulun, out of the ring. And so the dwarf pronounces a terrible curse on the ring that it will destroy the peace of mind of anyone who gains possession of it. All right, the 4 dramas comes to an end only when the curse is returned. The cursed ring is returned to the Rhine maidens. So the 4 nights of the ring, or the 4 different performances, were meant to be performed on 4 consecutive nights. Each one is its own cycle, its own storyline, but they are all connected. And what we are going to be watching and listening to comes from the second night, the second work of the cycle. Excuse me. I'll check it later. Now, this particular story, the god Wotan has he has all of these children by these different women. Some of them are, they're half man, half god, and so he has a set of twins, Sigmund and Sieglinde, male and female, fraternal twins, who have fallen in love with one another and had this incestuous relationship. Well, he has agreed for made an arrangement for his daughter to marry some, I don't know who he is, it's a chieftain, some loveless marriage with this chieftain. And so because of this marriage she's been forced into, her son, her lover, her husband challenges her lover, who's also her brother, to a battle. The second act opens with a scene between the god Wotan, the father, and one of their daughters. Now, he has 9 daughters who are called Valkyries, and the Valkyries' jobs are to go around and collect all of the fallen heroes, when they have been in battle and stuff. They go and collect the bodies and bring them back to their mountains, where they will be kept for eternity. Valhalla is the name of the great hall where they're going to take them back to. So Wotan's daughter, favorite daughter, her name is Brunhilde. And she is one of his Valkyries. I guess she's like the head Valkyrie. Well, after this, she finds out that Sigmund and Sieglinde and all of this stuff is going on with them, and that the father has arranged for this battle to take place where the son will be killed. And she doesn't want her brother to be killed, so she steps in to stop the fight and rescue him. Well, he actually does get mortally wounded, and he dies after all. But she saves the sister from being killed, and she takes her, back to where the other Valkyries are gathered, and she's trying to protect her. Well, the father finds he knows, he's a god, he knows what's going on, so he comes there and he's going to punish her for saving the life of the daughter and for stepping in and all of that. Well, she sends her sister away before he gets there, but not until after she finds out that the sister is pregnant with the brother's child. I know, this is crazy. So she tells her that she's got to go and protect herself and protect this child. And so she convinces her to leave before their father gets there. So when the father gets there, the other Valkyries are all there, and he comes in and he says, where is she? Where is Brunhilde? And of course, you know, she can't hide from him. And so he's going to punish her. But he loves her and he doesn't want to just kill her. So he tells her that her punishment is going to be, he's going to put her to sleep, and he's going to put a ring of fire around her, and she will have to remain asleep surrounded by this ring of fire until a hero who is worthy comes to brave the fire to rescue her. So he kisses her on the eyes, puts her to sleep, lays her down, starts the ring of fire around her. And that's how the second night ends. Then in the third night, we are introduced to the baby that is Sigmund and Sieglinde's baby that is born. And he grows up in the third night. And in the fourth night, he is actually the hero who will come and save Brunhilde. Of course, they're half man, half God, so they're immortal, so they don't age the same way we would. So she is still herself in her present age when he comes to rescue her all those years later. Now, the underlying music that we hear is the child's theme, Siegfried's theme, that starts when the wall of fire is first put up around Brunhilde. We begin to hear this theme. And this music is, this leitmotif is brought later. And third drama, Sieglinde comes in, he forces his way through the flames, he awakens Brunhilde with a kiss, and it, you know, because the music that we hear now becomes his theme. This is the idea of the leitmotif that Wagner starts that then is carried through many, many years later by John Williams in Star Wars. And we'll talk about that more when we get to American music. So I want to get you started by listening to this, but I know it's a long thing. If we were in class, I would only play portions of it for you. Start and watch just a little bit of it so you can get an idea. There's closed captioning. You can hear, you can see what they're saying, and so you can watch it in bits and pieces. It is rather long, but be sure to listen to the ending, the last few minutes, so that you can see when he puts her to sleep and he starts the fire around it. Then you begin to hear the music, that the theme that will be the Siegfried theme. The magic sleep motive, it's a chromatic line in the woodwinds coming down, and then the slumber motive is also heard in the woodwinds. Siegfried's motive is towards the end. It is brass in fortissimo, very loud, announces the Siegfried motive. And it's bum, bum, ba, bum, ba, ba, bum, da, 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 da. It's really big and powerful in the brass, and it's right close to the end. And it's just will introduce us to the Siegfried motive that comes back in the next two nights of the show. So I know this is confusing. It's a very confusing storyline. If you ever wanted to see all of the operas in their completion, it is rather interesting. But watch now the Ride of the Valkyries, which is just the Valkyries coming into Valhalla, bringing the wounded and dead heroes, and then skip to the end so that you can hear the Siegfried motive. I hope this made sense.